I've now completed the first week of training ready for the Spartan 50k ultra race in September, and this video is going to be a quick recap of how it went and go over the lessons learned from this week, because there's been quite a few that I've taken on board from how the week's gone. So it's officially now 9 weeks out, and the last 7 days have kind of proven a few valuable lessons that I need to learn from and apply going forwards. And the main thing on that is that it's not been very structured. Okay, in my own mind, part of me thinks that it's been an unproductive week compared to what I think it could have been, but I've still got 4 training sessions in. It's been 2 runs, 2 training sessions in the gym for some strength, which I'll benefit from, but those training sessions have also provided some further insight into how I actually train. And in this video, I'm just going to go over how the week went, what those lessons were, okay, how are you going to use that to go forward to prepare for the race. So a quick recap on how the week went, and as I said, it didn't exactly go to plan. Initially, I'd planned to do 6 sessions, 3 runs, 3 gym sessions or strength-based sessions to improve, just general strength and performance. But overall, I only got 2 runs in and 2 gym sessions in, and the gym sessions themselves as well were very ad hoc, in the moment, making the most of it to make sure I got something in. And I'll kind of allude to why that happened as I go through the lessons later. But one of the key things I noticed was the strain and the fatigue in the body compared to what I initially thought it was going to be. As I said in the last video, before training I had about 5 to 6 weeks where I wasn't really doing much because of a back injury. I just strained my lower back doing the Nuclear Fit race, and I really was out of action. I was just about able to turn up as a PT and a gym coach to put on classes and coach people, and just about made it through, which I think is why the recovery took so long, but also why it helped me not to completely seize up entirely. But I had done a couple of training sessions before I got into the training week last week and thought I was okay, but it really taught me that I need more build up to the intensity that I kind of expect of myself. And that kind of goes into the first lesson or main point I want to go over in the video, and that is what, as a coach or a strength conditioning coach, I would call the general preparatory phase, or the general prep phase in training. Now, as a everyday trainer, you may not necessarily go over this kind of training, but if you're trained to perform, your training tends to be quite intense, so you actually have to prepare the body for that kind of training. You don't just jump straight in, and I kind of skipped that. Okay, where I was a bit arrogant, maybe I was overestimating how fit I was, or how I was feeling. But this week definitely took its toll in the sense of fatigue and the strain that I was feeling from each session. And it just made me think that actually I need to not necessarily take a step back, I just need to be a little bit smarter with how the next week of training goes. So the next week of training, it's all going to be about kind of stripping it back to basics, not overdoing it on weights and intensities, and just making sure that I build the body up rather than go straight into trying to do elite level training. That'll be part of the progression as it goes through the weeks ready for the race. And a nice way to look at the general prep phase when it comes to training, especially if you're training for a particular event where you're being very specific and intense on the training you're doing, is that the training you're doing as part of your training phase, your cycle, or your program is there to prepare you for that event so you can perform as best you can. The general prep phase is preparing your body for that training. So that the step from your sort of baseline level of fitness, ready to withstand the intensities and the workload required in that training, ready to perform. So it's like same as turning up for a marathon and feeling like you didn't train enough because you're feeling like it's really hard. In the same sense of when you do your training for that marathon, the 10-12 weeks before you do it, or 6 months, how long you take to train for it, the build up before that, okay, when you first start that training, you might feel like you're a bit too, tired, you're not able to keep up with the training. That general prep phase there to build you up so it's not overwhelming and over fatiguing, because then you end up overtraining, okay, you burn out, you fatigue, and you end up getting more injured as you train, which is what no one wants. So if you are training something specific, make sure you include the general prep phase in your training just to ramp it up as you go into it. The second lesson I probably learned from last week, or the first week of training, was trying to be consistent is hard when you don't actually have a plan to be consistent. It's one thing to say that you train every day is part of being consistent, okay, or 6 days a week or whatever it is you train for, but if you don't know when you train, okay, what training you're going to do, what days or type of training you're going to do on the day, it's not quite as consistent as it can be. And what I mean by that is the lesson that I learned, I said I wanted to do 6 training sessions last week, I only managed to get 4, and the 2 strength trainings were quite, unstructured. It was kind of just doing on the day what I felt like I could do and get in with the time I had. Isn't a form of consistency. Yes, doing something is better than nothing. However, the level I'm aspiring to on the Spartan race is going to require a higher level of consistency to improve and progress the training over the weeks. Okay, random sessions aren't going to cut it for this. And a big part of consistency requires planning and preparation. In order to be consistent, you need to know when you're going to train, how you're going to train, what you need in order to prepare and be ready for it. And it is something as simple as plan it in your diary, or the week before you check your diary, you see what space you have free, you then take the sessions you're going to do and plan them into that diary, which is something I will be doing for next week to make sure I stick to the training I want to. But it really makes you think about when people feel like they struggle to fit training, fitness, or healthy habits into their life and stay consistent with it, because that's one of the biggest factors that's going to not guarantee success but be an indicator of how successful you'll be, is how consistent you are. Creating a plan for the week of when you're going to train is probably one of the best ways or best tools you can use to make that much more successful at being consistent. So moving forwards, definitely planning out the training is going to be a key one that I'm going to be working towards, especially over the entire weeks, building forwards to it. And that kind of leads on to the third point, which is about having a routine. As I said at the start of the video, and I mentioned about being in the other videos, that I've just come back from 5 to 6 weeks of kind of being out injured, not having any planning, preparing for training or a routine of training in my weekly, daily life. And as a personal trainer and a coach, doing pretty much all of my stuff in person on the gym floor, one of the struggles I have is clients changing sessions or covering people's classes in the gym. It disrupts the daily routine and pattern, which is not always a bad thing. Okay, well, very rarely is it a good thing, but being adaptable is a good skill in life. Creating a routine in your life is what's going to make things much more easier to stick to. It's kind of a higher level of being consistent. Having a routine is what creates consistency, and being consistent in your routine is what creates that greater level of success. So right now, last week I thought I was going to just jump straight in and have this training routine that was going to be all set and good to go, when realistically probably for like the last 2 months I've had zero routine when it comes to training, which is why sticking to the training plan was suddenly so hard. And it's one of the big things I look to as a coach, is about trying to get people to create a routine of health and fitness. And I don't mean about their entire life, okay? It doesn't help. It's not going to be a bad thing if you create a routine for the whole day, but at least around your health and fitness to hit those goals. Because most people go, oh, well, I'm doing all this work, but I'm not, hitting the goals. It's because there's no structure to your life about actually being consistent to get the goals. And that's exactly kind of the trap I fell into last week. So one of the tasks I face going forwards that's going to be a indicator of success is what routine I can build into my weekly schedule around my training. And that isn't about creating the perfect routine, because as I just earlier mentioned, is things disrupt it. Okay, it's not always going to be perfect, and you are going to have to adapt. Okay, you had the same in the army. Okay, no plans as far as first contact, because as soon as something happens, that plan isn't going to work, and you have to be able to think on your feet and make it work. But one of the key things to that is part of your routine is having your priorities. So for me in my training, the main priority is running. So if, say, on Monday I miss a training session and then day 2 comes around and I've got the opportunity to train, if I've missed a running session, it's better for me to get another running session in. You know, in the same way, I don't know, a bodybuilder, they aren't going to be doing any cardio, but it might be a case if they need to specifically work on their legs, their upper body, chest, shoulders, anything specific. Decide on your biggest priorities and make sure they get done either first or over the secondary priorities is going to ensure that you get a better return on the time that you spend if a disruption happens. And part of your routine is, you know, trying to work against that, but choosing your priorities is going to help you to fight against any disruptions and any disturbances to your habits. So going forwards, one of the tasks I need to make is creating a routine in my training, because having a routine is going to increase that chance of consistency, and that greater level of consistency is going to improve my chance and levels of success and how well I perform on the day. And it is one of those ones is that a routine is great, but at the end of the day, there's always going to be a chance of disruption. Okay, life likes to make it hard. I'll say sometimes, but sometimes it feels a lot of the times. But when it comes to creating routine, a big part of that is also highlighting your priorities. For me right now, a bigger priority is getting my running training in over strength training. Yes, it's important, but if I plan to do 6 training sessions and I can only get 5 in, I still want to make sure 3 of those are running rather than making 3 of those weightlifting or resistance training. So if you're creating your own routine, think about what your priorities are and then build that around your schedule and your routine. And the best way to do it is take your weekly calendar, put in the non-negotiables that you kind of don't have any control over. This is going to be stuff like work, school, family commitments like the kids. It might be hobbies and interests. If you play football or some sort of sport, you might have team training that you can't change. Put in those fixed appointments and times and then build your own routine around it. And then you can see when the best times are to action those habits. And then over time you'll learn what works best, where you can make that best action and get the most progress and results from the time that you put into it. And that's exactly what I'm going to be doing going forwards. I'm recording this on the Sunday. This is kind of when I'm trying to do all my updates and keep a little bit of a routine and schedule. But one of my tasks for the day before it finishes is to plan out next week, planning when my training session is going to be, so that I know when I'm training, what I need, and when's the best time to do it. One thing I say about a routine, okay, and it kind of overarching lesson from all the points from today is that when you try to do something new, you try to create a new habit, you try to achieve a new goal, and you try to sort of like reach a next level in self-aspiration and self-progression, it's always going to be hard to do something new. And that kind of, is based on everything I spoke about today in this video, in the sense of trying to create a new routine, okay, something that you've not been doing before, something that completely changes your daily and your weekly schedule. Those new habits that maybe, they are slightly harder than what you anticipate, and you might find they take their toll a lot more than you thought they would, and you may have to bring it back a little bit, okay? You might have to start at a level lower than you expected or what you wanted to, but you can't then rise to that level without doing the basics and the foundation stuff you need to do first. And sometimes that can be a bit of a motivational and psychological hit. But they're the lessons that are the most valuable, because you learn how to adapt, you learn what you can take physically, mentally, spiritually, whatever it is for you, and finding a solution. And once you start to build the routines, it becomes a lot easier. And the body and the human mind works best on habits and routines. So once you create that structure, it becomes a lot easier. But you are now fighting against everything you used to do. If you're used to getting up at, say, 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, and you're now trying to get up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, it's a big change to the body. You've got your circadian rhythm, you've got, the natural schedule to your body, and the weekly timetable you used to, because you might be going to bed slightly later than you need to, so you have to change that as well. You might have to change, your food, because you're eating earlier or later. You have to change your food so you actually make that fit. It's hard, but that hard work becomes a lot easier, because as soon as you change routine to become your new routine, those habits come a lot easier, and you're now doing the habits that are going to progress you to that next level, and to that and towards that goal that you want to achieve. So even if it's hard, do as best you can to figure out what the right level is for you and what the right habits you need to achieve, so that you can then progress to that next level and then keep progressing onwards and onwards. So yeah, that's a lot of stuff I like to go over when I'm coaching people, and it's the sort of stuff that I find has the biggest reward. Okay, anyone can turn up to the gym and train. It's quite simple. You do sets and reps, the exercises. Okay, and again, even that routine, you do the same exercise, or you do three workouts a week. You repeat that over 4 to 6 weeks. You then move on to the next one, because you get stronger and fitter. It's simple how fitness works. But yeah, that's what I've learned from the first week of training. Okay, it's not a failure, it's a lesson learned, and it means it now highlights what I need to do going forwards. So I'll get this out, and then hopefully you guys can see the next video of how week 2 went for training for the Spartan Ultra 50k.